start the recording, and then I'm going to gotta present. Let's see. Screen. All right, there we go. Cool. Well, again, good morning to those of you who are on with me. I appreciate you being here. We're going to start off this session with a couple of sort of thinking exercises. Hopefully some more people will join us as we go along. First, I'd like you to take a moment and think about a time when you had to implement a really big overhaul kind of thing. Maybe you had to move out of your house. So you had to, pack up all your belongings and you moved to a new place, or you did perhaps a bathroom or a kitchen remodel. Maybe you were part of a major company-wide policy change. And think about how you felt during that time. You're welcome to throw something in the chat as well, or to just vocalize if you care to share how you felt during that big overhaul period of time. I'm going to assume and guess that it was probably a little stressful, maybe a little overwhelming for you, as it is for most people. Is everyone familiar with the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? Has anyone heard that phrase before? This is slightly interactive, by the way, so I'm hoping that people will play along. All right. Have not heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? Can you imagine what the answer to that would be? And I'm going to answer it for you. The answer to eating an elephant is one bite at a time, a little bit at a time. Yes, Lisa, thank you. So now we're going to shift a little bit. I want you to think about another time when you had to change something very small. So instead of packing up your whole house and moving, maybe you just cleaned out the front closet, or you cleaned out your bedroom. Or instead of remodeling the kitchen, maybe you replaced the sink. How did you feel at that time as compared to how you felt during the big overhaul period? I'm going to take a guess again and think that perhaps making smaller changes was a little bit easier, maybe slightly more enjoyable than the big overhaul period, right? Much easier to handle mentally. Yes, absolutely. So how does this all fit together? My name is Kate DeForest. I'm the Web and Digital Content Coordinator here at SUNY Oswego. I want to thank you all again for being here with me. Today, we're going to talk about how to eat the digital accessibility elephant, the proverbial digital accessibility elephant. Over the years, as we have introduced and talked about accessibility here at Oswego, we have found that people start to feel a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe they start to get a little bit stressed out about it. There's definitely a lot to learn around accessibility, and that sort of can be very daunting to people. So we're going to talk today about how to break that down and how to tackle digital accessibility one little bite at a time. Now, there's just a few of you who are online with me today, but I'd like to ask how many of you, if any of you, are supervisors to a team? And again, you can like throw up an icon or throw it in the chat, whatever you want to do. All right, we have one who is not, we have one who is. Awesome. I hope that today's session will provide some insights that you can use both personally and that you can use to help inspire and engage a team if you are a supervisor, or if you're not a supervisor, just some of these messages you can pass along to other team members, or maybe pass along to your supervisor to try to help kind of get everyone involved in improving the digital accessibility of content. Is anyone familiar with the book Atomic Habits by any chance? This is a phenomenal book. If you have not heard of it, I highly recommend it. I talk about it all the time to anyone who will listen. It has nothing to do with digital accessibility. However, the premise of this book by James Clear is that small shifts are more easily implemented and more easily accepted rather than big overhauls. The effects of the changes may not be immediately noticeable, but they build over time to become significant. So as an example, I give a lot of examples during this session. As an example, Let's say you board a plane in Los Angeles and you're heading to New York City. If the nose of the plane is shifted 3.5 degrees to the south, anyone care to guess where you might end up? Because it's not New York City. 3.5 degrees shift, not the correct place. Yes. A 3.5 degree shift will put you in Washington, D.C., which is 228 miles away from your intended destination. So sitting on the runway, if you imagine yourself in a plane sitting on the runway, you're probably not going to notice a 3.5 degree shift. That equals about 7 feet. However, when you get off the plane, you're going to notice that you're not in New York City. So that minor adjustment completely changed the pathway that you were on. And this can be true for any area of our life. The third point is creating good systems is more important than the actual end goal. Systems will help you get to the goal. So as an example for this, I like to use New Year's resolutions. Many people like to make New Year's resolutions, but many of us find it difficult to stick with those New Year's resolutions for 365 days. And according to the Atomic Habits principles, the reason that is because we consider only the end goal. We don't consider how it is we're going to get there. So we say things like, I want to be healthy, or I want to save money, or I want to watch less TV. But we don't necessarily lay out specific plans or individual steps to take in order to get ourselves to that goal. So saying that your department or saying that the institution needs to be more accessible, air quotes, is great in theory. It's a really good principle. It's something I highly stand behind. However, that statement alone is not effective. So we need to be very intentional, and we need to be very specific about how we help to move that initiative forward. So for those of you who are on the call with me today, if anyone is watching this session in the replay, those of us who are interested in digital accessibility are our campus accessibility champions. And it's part of our responsibility to help bring specific ideas and actions to the table on how we can help promote, help advance the digital accessibility initiative. I'm going to put something in the chat real quick. This is a link to a handout that I have that provides you the information that I'm giving to you on these slides in a little more detail. All right, so we're going to put these all together. There are 4 laws of atomic habits. They are make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And these 4 laws can be implemented in any area of our lives, including digital accessibility. So we're going to put it together on how to break down this accessibility elephant and how to take it one piece at a time to try to help push the initiative forward. Principle number 1, make it obvious. By the way, as a side, all of the quotes that I use throughout this presentation come directly from the book Atomic Habits. You'll also notice that in the slideshow, as well as the Google document that I linked to, I use the abbreviation A11Y in place of the word accessibility. All right, so principle number 1, make it obvious. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. I want you to think about that for a second. If you want to implement any new routine, any new habit, you have to create a supportive environment that allows you to do that. A number of years ago, there was a visually impaired student attended here at SUNY Oswego. And she used to always, the story that I've heard is that she always used to go past the door for the accessibility resources office. She knew what building she had to be in. She knew what hallway to go down. She knew which side of the hallway it was on, but there was nothing to differentiate the accessibility resources door from any other door. And she was a very fast walker from what I've heard. So she would just constantly walk down the hallway and just blow right past the door. So Star Wheeler and the staff of accessibility resources at that time decided to brainstorm a little bit, and they put textured tape on the floor outside of the door. So when this student was walking down the hallway on the correct side of the hallway, she would hit that tape and she would know, it would become very obvious to her, that's where the door was and that's where she had to stop. And I believe they're at 155 Murano Campus Center. If you go down to their office, there's still tape outside the door on the floor. So we need to treat digital accessibility the same way. We need to be very blatant. We need to be very obvious with it. We need to put it in front of people, front and center, so they know where to stop. They know that they need to listen. They know where to get the resources and how to create accessible things. We need to be very intentional with it. So how do we do this? The easiest way we've determined, one of the easiest ways, is to meet people where they are. Think for just a moment about all of the meetings that you have on your calendar, all of the opportunities that are already in place that you could take advantage of to talk a little bit about digital accessibility or to bring up digital accessibility, right? We have department meetings, we have directors meetings, we have faculty onboarding, we have faculty orientation, faculty retreats, like I can go on and on. There's a lot of meetings already on our calendars. If you hold accessibility trainings or accessibility meetings during those regular department meetings, you already have a captive audience. People don't have to go out of their way. They don't have to add another meeting onto their calendar, right? Accessibility should not be treated as an afterthought or an add-on. It should automatically be part of workshops, orientations, course developments, and so on. If any of you on today are faculty members, or if you've worked with our instructional designers, they are very knowledgeable in accessibility and building digital accessibility into Brightspace and into your course materials. So if you ever work with the IDs to create a course or to build a course of any kind, they can help you with that, with making your course materials more accessible. Also part of meeting people where they are, we need to be very direct, clear, and specific when we're talking about digital accessibility. And now that I'm saying this, I probably should have specified in the very beginning, is everyone familiar with the term digital accessibility? I kind of took that for granted. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say digital accessibility? Because we've learned, we being the members of the work group on accessibility practices, we've learned that there is a very big disconnect as to what that term means or could mean. Most people think of it in the colloquial version, which as paraphrased from Merriam-Webster means to be reached, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. That's how most people think of accessible, right? The more inclusive version of the definition, as paraphrased by the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights website, is a person with a disability and a person without a disability can have the same or similar experience in the same or similar manner. So you want all of the information that's presented to those without any disabilities to also be able to be presented to people with disabilities, right? So everybody's understanding things similarly. So we can't just tell people you need to make your content accessible because A, not everyone will understand exactly what that means. B, they may understand what digital accessibility means, but they may not know how to make their content accessible. So part of this session is to help determine where the resources are and how we can help others learn how to make their content more accessible. Yes, I love the definition, the bare bones stripped down. A person with and a person without can have the same or similar experience in the same or similar manner. I think that's a brilliant way to phrase digital accessibility. So principle number 2 is make it attractive. Sorry, I lost my spot for a second. We can find evidence for whatever mindset we choose. Now, if any of you know me, I recognize a couple of your names, but please don't judge me. I'm going to share a very personal story with you. I want you to know I am a very nice person. I have grown a lot since this story took place. When I was a teenager, when I was a kid, I was an epic brat towards my parents, epic brat. And if I didn't want to go somewhere with my family, which was pretty much any time we went anywhere as a family unit, I made that very blatantly known to my parents. And I would whine and I would complain and I would say things like, this is so stupid. I'm not going to have any fun. My friends aren't going to be there. Why do I have to go? And my father used to say to me, of course, you're not going to have any fun if you don't want to go. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to fully understand what that statement meant and to fully realize that my attitude about whatever it was we were doing, my attitude about it was determining my outlook about it. I was determined to be miserable before we even got to the place. There's an example in the book Atomic Habits about a man in a wheelchair, and he is once asked if it's difficult to be confined by his wheelchair. And the man responded, I'm not confined by my wheelchair. My wheelchair liberates me. Without my chair, I would be bedbound. My chair allows me to leave the house. And I find that that is an extremely powerful perspective to take on things. If we reframe our mindset to highlight the benefits of something, it can impact the people we're talking to. So our wording around digital accessibility can help create a more positive mindset for others. So when we speak of digital accessibility, we want to try to shift that perspective. Use wording that has a positive implication to encourage people to join you, right? This is the difference between you need to make your materials more accessible, which, by the way, people don't like to hear. People don't like to be told what to do. So when you say to them, you need to do this, people start to get a little defensive, right? So instead, we can start saying things like, you get to create a more positive experience for others by making your materials more accessible. You get to remove barriers that could prevent someone from using your digital content. We get to help other people, right? And who doesn't want to do that? So that puts a whole different spin on things. We also want to focus on the benefits that accessibility has for a very wide audience. Lots of times people think of accessibility as being strictly disability focused, and this is simply not true. Every single one of us, those of us on the call today, anyone listening to this call on replay, pretty much every single one of us everywhere uses some kind of accessibility feature, probably close to every single day. These include things like automatic grocery store doors, hands-free GPS in the car, curb cuts, captions. There is not a hearing impairment in my house, yet the captions go on every single time we turn on the TV. And I think my children started this at some point. And at first I was like, why are the captions on? We don't need captions. And then I started to realize that as I was watching TV, it was easier for me to process things if I could read them as I was hearing them. So the captions are just constantly on in my house now. So I think it's important to point this out so people understand that accessibility is not specifically disability focused. Accessibility features can help those who experience temporary, situational, or permanent disabilities, and they can even help those of us without any disabilities at all. So everyone's going to have some kind of disability at some point in your life, and accessibility features are built in to help all of us. Now, we have two images on the screen here. On the left-hand side is an old school metal potato peeler from the 1970s and 80s. Anybody remember these things? And on the right side of the screen, we have an OXO Good Grips potato peeler. I don't know if any of you have used the old school potato peelers. I totally remember using one of those. And yeah, it doesn't flip around too much. They were so much fun to use. No, they were terrible to use. They don't flip around. It was uncomfortable. It like cramped your hand all the time. Like I can remember using these and it was just terrible. So the story goes, and I fact-checked this, the story goes that a man named Sam Farber was watching his wife, Betsy, and Betsy has arthritis, and Betsy was really struggling with one of these old school potato peelers. Her arthritic hands was just not getting along with this metal potato peeler. So Sam and Betsy came up with the idea of creating this big fat rubber grip handle, and then they became the founders of OXO Good Grips. OXO Good Grips could have been marketed as specifically for helping people with arthritis. However, as I'm sure we all know, these tools are marketed to everybody. Sam saw an opportunity to create a product that benefits everyone because they are more comfortable and more easier to use. So we're trying to do the same with our digital content, right? Our goal is to remove potential barriers from that content and create a product that is easier for a wide audience to use so that someone can use your digital content without really thinking too much about how they're going to use it. Principle number 3, make it easy. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start with repetition, not perfection. Has anyone on here learned how to play an instrument? Or maybe you have kids who have learned to play an instrument? I did both. I learned and then I have kids who learned to play an instrument. When we start out playing an instrument, generally, we don't jump for Beethoven or Bach, right? We start at the basics and we have to endure scales upon scales upon scales and twinkle, twinkle, little star ad nauseum, right? Because by learning how to play an instrument, by repeating those scales over and over and over again, by playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star again and again and again, you're training your brain, you're training your muscles that that action is a part of your everyday routine. Hot cross buns, yes, another great one. Hot cross buns, hot cross buns. The repetition, again, is training us that that part is mandatory, right? And how are habits formed? Habits are formed by repeating actions over and over and over and over and over again. So we're teaching ourselves that running those scales is a habit. Once that habit becomes automatic, then you can build on it from there and you work your way up past Twinkle Twinkle and hot cross buns. And then you go to the next level and then you go to the next level. And eventually you can train yourself to be able to play Beethoven and Bach, right? The same principle, the same theory can be used for digital accessibility. Introduce and practice one aspect of accessibility at a time. Start with the little tiny pieces, the bare bones basics, and then work your way up. Start with the baby steps. People tend to view accessibility as an insurmountable mountain. As I said at the very beginning, there is a lot of information to learn around accessibility. I get that. I acknowledge that. I do not know nearly everything there is to know about accessibility. So people tend to get very overwhelmed. People can get very stressed out. They get very frustrated, right? And what happens when we get overwhelmed and stressed out and frustrated? We tend to shut down. We don't want to do the thing because it's hard to do. But if we break accessibility down into individual pieces, individual aspects, it makes things much easier to digest, much more easily manageable, and much more easily understandable. Now, I do want to note here that we will never be 100% accessible to 100% of the people 100% of the time. That is a fallacy. It is not expected. It is impossible to achieve. However, we can strive to be 1% more accessible than what we were last week or yesterday or last year or last quarter. And even being 1% more accessible is movement in the right direction, right? You're continually pushing yourself forward. So that's what we want to go for. Baby steps, progress over perfection. Also part of this, we want to be able to provide a variety of formats for resources and training. If you ask someone to go out of their way to learn something new or to do something that seems very hard and very daunting and very difficult, chances are we're not going to want to do it. Generally speaking, us as a human race want the easy button. Remember the Staples commercial from a number of years ago? That was a long time ago, actually. It was like 20 years ago with the easy button. You just want to push that easy button and get the job done with. Even the overachievers look for the easy button sometimes. So we don't want to ask people to completely go out of their way to learn accessibility. And asking them to learn all of accessibility is too much. So again, we have to kind of narrow it down, break it down. At Oswego, we offer a number of different varieties of training resources. We have beginner and intermediate level sessions. This right here is sort of an overview, high-level beginner type session. We have a number of other sessions that dig deeper into actually how to make content accessible. We offer both written and video tutorials, so you can choose the format that you best work with, whether it's reading a written tutorial and following the instructions or watching a video. We have synchronous and asynchronous sessions, right? We have a lot of sessions like this one that we're holding where we record on Zoom. Right now, you all can interact with me. You can ask me questions. You can throw things in the chat. It's very synchronous. It's recorded and then it's posted online. So it becomes asynchronous at that point where you can't really interact with it, but you can still get the information. We also offer links to reputable sources such as LinkedIn Learning, DeQ University, WebAIM, and others that provide learning materials and documents and articles that you can read and all sorts of different things so you can sort of gather the information and learn about accessibility. I'm not offering any links at this moment in time, but at the end, I will provide you with some links to a couple different resources that you can go to look more into. So again, striving for that progress over perfection, breaking things down, taking it one little piece at a time. And then principle number 4 is make it satisfying. So the first 3 atomic laws or atomic principles, make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. Those 3 laws help ensure that the behavior will be performed, right? This law, make it satisfying, helps ensure that the behavior is repeated. Anything that you implement, if you want it to be lasting, you have to be able to ensure that it's going to be repeated. Pleasure, says James Clear, pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating. So how do we make digital accessibility pleasurable? That's like the $1 million question. This is the one that's still sort of being experimented with. Our brains are hardwired to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed rewards. I think that's obvious to pretty much everybody, right? So here's another example I'd like you to keep in mind. Chewing gum was sold commercially throughout the 1800s, and it was made of very bland resins. In 1891, a little company you may have heard of called Wrigley's came on the scene, and they completely changed the game. Anyone care to guess how Wrigley's changed the game of chewing gum? Wrigley's, yes, flavor added. Wrigley's added flavor. So they started out with like spearmint and juicy fruit, right? And as we started to chew this gum with this newly added flavor, our brains sort of exploded and we went, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. My mouth feels all nice and cool and tingly and fresh, and it tasted really good. I'm going to do that again. So consumption of chewing gum skyrocketed. And to this day, Wrigley's is the largest chewing gum company in the world. Now, I will admit there were probably more factors at play than simply adding a couple drops of flavoring to their recipe that positioned Wrigley's as the #1 chewing gum company in the world. However, adding the flavor was the reward. It was the hook that triggered our brains, telling us that that was a very enjoyable and pleasurable experience, making us want to do it again. Now, in terms of digital accessibility, I know that story has nothing to do with digital accessibility, but I find it very intriguing and very powerful. In terms of digital accessibility, within the past couple of months, I had conversations with 2 different directors of accessibility or disability resources who basically told me the same thing. They were 2 different women from 2 completely different schools. They'd never met one another, and they told me basically the same thing. One of them said her philosophy is, what does this student need to succeed? How can I make things better or easier for them? Her office is decorated with positive, inspirational quotes. The office staff are always very friendly. They have a little jar of candy sitting out at the front desk, right? Students come in and they feel comfortable in that accessibility resources or disability resources office. The other director said they have a rule in their office that they always smile when a student comes in the door. Doesn't matter what kind of day you're having as a staff member, doesn't matter what happened, doesn't matter how bad of a mood you happen to be in. When you engage with students, when a student walks through their door, they engage with them in a very positive and genuine way. Because, and I quote, she said to me, "The world is hard enough. We do what we can to make things better for our students." So staff members from both offices are rewarding the students who come into their office by providing them with a very pleasant experience, right? They're making the students feel welcome, making the students feel heard, making the students feel comfortable. And that's kind of what we have to do with accessibility. We need to be able to find ways to reward one another for putting effort into learning digital accessibility and creating accessible documents. Now, again, this can be very creative. We want to start by fostering a positive environment. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about previously with the wording that we use, right? Instead of saying you have to do this, say we get to make a better experience for our audience by removing potential barriers, by creating content that is less confusing, by creating content that can be used more easily. So we need to be very intentional with our wording and with our attitude towards digital accessibility. And part of it too can be adding a gamification aspect. If anyone was involved in the previous accessibility challenges, the 10-day challenge or the 5-day challenge, we added a very little bit of a gamification aspect into that, right? We tried to break things down. We offered components one at a time. And then at the end of it, you could fill out your information and you could receive a certificate of completion that basically said, I went through this course and I did this thing. Like that's a little bit of a gamification aspect. We were rewarding you for putting the effort in to trying to make your content more accessible. This could come in lots of different ways, as I said. We could try to collaborate and try to create like bingo cards. These are all ideas that I've thought of that we've sort of talked about within our work group that have not yet come to fruition, but we're working on them. So things like bingo cards, maybe a scavenger hunt, having little friendly department competitions, either within the department or, across departments with your neighboring department. It could also be a possibility to collaborate with either on campus or other off-campus local establishments to offer gift cards as prizes for people who take accessibility training or who, reach a certain level of accessibility on the Ally score in Brightspace. You could offer like coffee vouchers or gift cards to local stores. Badges to display in email or on social media. Again, this is sort of along the same lines as the certificate of completion that we offered with the initial challenge, right? We want to give you something that you can display to say, I took this course, I did this material, and I learned something. So here's my proof that I went through this. For those of you who are professors or faculty members, you could include accessibility as part of the grading rubric for your students. Pass this along to your students. Put in certain accessibility features. You have to have alt text if you have images in your project. You have to properly semantically structure headings instead of just bumping the font size up. Or you can add it as extra credit. Give them a little bit of something extra if they include accessibility principles. Or as I mentioned initially, just put it directly in as part of the grade. If you don't do this, then automatically 10 points off, or however it goes. And the last point is, for this includes everybody, we, the content creators, become the superheroes, right? Again, I'm going to reiterate this. I know I've said this 2 or 3 times already. By adding in accessibility features, we are removing potential barriers and we are creating a more positive experience for others. We are allowing them to use a product that's more comfortable and easier to use. That makes us the superhero. Again, who doesn't want to do that? Like, you don't want to be that person that leaves a big old wall in place that prevents someone from using your content. So I also mentioned in the beginning that the end goal is not quite as important as the actual system, right? So maintaining the system. Success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It is a system to improve, an endless process to refine. To me, this is the epitome of digital accessibility, an endless process to refine. We will never be 100% accessible. We just won't be yet. But we can always strive to maintain that system to become a little more accessible than what we used to be. There's always that possibility. So how do we do that? We have to purposefully and intentionally shift our trajectory, right? As another example, to shift our lifestyle, we have to shift the overall approach. We can't just eat one apple and be like, yay, I'm healthy now, or take 1 mile walk and say, all right, that was my exercise for the week. I'm super healthy now. I ate an apple and I took a walk, right? If you want to maintain that sort of healthy lifestyle, you have to completely shift how you look at food, how you look at exercise, how, your overall healthy eating habits. Accessibility does not happen by accident. We must be very intentional. We have to make very intentional decisions. And those intentional decisions can create very small shifts. Again, it doesn't have to be monumental. You don't have to go completely out of your way to overhaul the way that you create documents. You can continue to make these small 1% shifts that will help boost the accessibility of your document and help maintain the system that will move the accessibility initiative forward. So it starts with shifting our approach to accessibility, right? Again, it can't be thought of as an afterthought or an add-on. It has to be front and center. And that's how you start to make the shift. You put it front and center. You do things repetitively, right? So you start off by adding semantic headings to your document. So every time you sit down at your computer and you open a document, your brain goes, okay, I gotta create a heading. I can't just make it a bigger font size. I have to actually structure the heading. And then once you get into that habit, then you can kind of move forward. You go, okay, I have to embed my links. So every time you sit down to create a document, your brain says, oh, there's a link. I got to embed that link. Every time you add an image, your brain says, oh, there's an image. I have to put alt text in that image. You do it one at a time and you build up to it until you get the overall picture. So I want everyone to kind of walk away today. I know we still have a few minutes for questions and such. I'm going to share some links with you as I promised. But I want you to ask yourself, what 1% shift can you implement immediately in your everyday workflow that can help boost accessibility, that can help change your mindset or help impress some of this information on others around you? One thing that you can do that would help just a little bit to push that 1% forward. And if you have some ideas you feel like sharing, throw them in the chat. Go ahead and unmute yourself and shout it out to me. That's absolutely fine. If not, that's okay. But that's the question that I want everyone to think about. All right, we do have a comment. I'm working on being mindful of fonts, color contrast, and simplifying language. That's excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Those are all really awesome things. Yes, mindful of fonts. Fonts can be very distracting. Fonts can be very hard to read, depending on if you're using a big fancy script font. Same with color contrast. That's very important. If you get too many colors going on, it sort of discombobulates the brain and people don't really know what's happening. Seeing color on top of color is very distracting as well and can be very difficult for those with a visual impairment to see. And then simplifying language is another great point. I think so often, and I'm just going to say it, we get into like this higher ed speak. All right. I work on websites. I redesign and help create a lot of the websites within oswego.edu. And we get into this higher ed speak. There's like all these big fancy words and big long sentences that take up like 4 lines. And I'm like, you lost me in the third word, man. Like you got to just bring it back down a little bit sometimes. And simplifying language helps your audience make sure that they're dealing with the right content, that your content pertains to them. It helps them understand what they're supposed to do with the content. And they don't have to spend 4 hours or 4 times reading it so they can try to understand what's happening. So simplifying language is a really big one. And then alt text. Yeah, Susan says alt text is her next focus. That's awesome as well. Alt text is very easily overlooked sometimes. It's a very gray area. It's very subjective as to what the image is being used for, right? So there can be a lot of confusion around what exactly do I put in my alt text. And again, there are other sessions specific to these individual points. But I think that's great that you guys are pointing those out and you're knowledgeable of those and you're looking to focus on those individual things. And that's the way to go. You just start on one thing, focus on that, and then build up from there. Here are the links that I promised. I'm going to see if I can put some of these in the chat. These are all also in the Google document that I shared at the very beginning, and there's a couple of extras in the Google document, but my email is kathleen.deforest@oswego.edu. The link to the actual Google document handout is bit.ly/digital accessibility elephant. There are no spaces. However, every word is capitalized. The accessibility website is oswego.edu/accessibility. This is where all of our tutorials are housed. Again, written tutorials, video tutorials. We have links to some of the outside sources that I mentioned. DeQ University is in there, which is a great online training platform. They have all sorts of different courses that you can kind of go through autonomously. You can take 10 minutes, you can take 4 hours, however long you want to do it. And there's a lot of other great information in the accessibility website. And then just for kicks, atomichabits.com, if anyone is interested in looking up that information. Again, I highly recommend that book. I got to about page 27 when I started reading that book, and the light bulb went off that we had already started talking about some of these principles without really knowing that they were Atomic Habits principles. It was when we first started to put together the accessibility challenge, and I realized that we were following some of these methods. So I read the book through the lens of digital accessibility, and it absolutely blew my mind that like you can totally apply those principles to digital accessibility. So they can truly be applied to any area of your life. Does anyone have any questions? We have a couple of minutes left. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We do have other accessibility. I did not take the time to write down the other accessibility sessions, and I apologize for that. That's a big fail on my part. I should have. But on the CELT website, there's lots of other accessibility sessions that are coming up. If anyone would be interested in having like a sort of one-on-one or having a member of the work group come to your individual department to talk either generically over, overview or to do a specific how-to training. Any one of the accessibility work group members is always happy to do that. So please feel free to reach out. I'll stop talking. So if anyone has any questions, I'll give you a chance to throw those out. All right, comment from Lisa has been really helpful. I will mention a possible training to the APC team in extended learning. Excellent, Lisa. I did actually a similar presentation with the extended learning with the instructional designers a number of years ago now. So, I mean, it would be time for a little bit of a refresh. But yeah, like I said, the work group members are very happy to do one-on-one trainings, to do department trainings, to just come in and sort of plant the seeds, start talking very generically, very high level overview of digital accessibility, or to do a much more deep dive, in-depth workshop. So I thank all of you for being here. If there's no other questions, I think we're good. We'll end just a couple minutes early. Just ordered the book. Awesome, Susan. I hope you enjoy it. I absolutely love it. So hope it serves you well in lots of areas of your life. All right. Thanks all very much for being here. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week.
Thank you so much.